What do you do when nothing works, when every door slams shut, when effort meets silence, when you're tired of pretending everything is fine? That's not the end. That's the moment your real power begins, if you know where to look. Here's the truth most people avoid. Life doesn't get easier, but you can get stronger. Right now, you're not facing a lack of opportunity. You're facing a test of your mindset. And that mindset, it can be retrained, refocused, reinforced. Through Stoic philosophy, you don't just survive chaos, you rise above it. This video isn't motivation fluff. It's a call to action for those ready to reclaim control. Inside, we'll break down 8 battle-tested Stoic principles, from mastering your thoughts to taking relentless daily action. You'll learn how to stay calm under pressure, develop real self-discipline, and turn failure into fuel. You're not broken. You're just one mindset shift away from clarity. And if you've fallen before, that means you already know how to rise. You're not alone in this. Thousands are silently going through what you're feeling, but only a few choose to change. Be one of them. Drop a comment below and say, "I can do it," and then prove it. Hit subscribe so you never miss another tool for mental strength. What's coming next might just be the breakthrough you've needed. Now, lean in. The transformation begins here. 1. You have power over your mind. Most people believe the battlefield is out there, at work, in the economy, in someone else's hands. But it's not. The real battlefield is internal. Your mind is the command center of everything you do, feel, and become. When chaos hits, when life doesn't go your way, when people disappoint you or situations turn against you, what matters most is how you respond. Not what happens, not what's said, not even what's lost, but the way you choose to see it. That is where your true power lies. A person gets humiliated in front of his team. His manager lashes out unfairly. The room falls silent. One part of him wants to explode, to defend himself, to strike back. The other part remains still. Not weak, not afraid, but aware. He breathes. He lets the emotion rise and fall. He speaks with clarity, not from the wound, but from wisdom. That's not luck. That's discipline. That's mental strength. That's stoicism in action. You cannot control whether someone will disrespect you, but you can control whether you carry that disrespect home. You can't change the past, but you can decide what it will mean for your future. You can't force others to be fair, but you can refuse to become bitter. That's the difference between being ruled by life and leading it. And that shift, it begins with one realization: you have power over your mind, not outside events. This idea may seem simple, but it is one of the most radical truths you can embody. Because the world is designed to distract you, trigger you, and pull you off center. News headlines thrive on fear. Social media profits from outrage. Society rewards reaction more than reflection. But you're not here to be pulled like a puppet. You're here to lead yourself from the inside out. Self-discipline is your shield. Mental clarity is your compass. And Stoicism is the path that helps you reclaim both. Stoic philosophy teaches that nothing is truly yours, except your judgment. You don't own outcomes. You don't own what others think of you, but you own your interpretation. That is where your freedom lies. And when you take back that power, you stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the architect of your reality. In practice, this means pausing before you react. Not bottling emotion, but not being led by it either. It means recognizing when your thoughts are spiraling into worst-case scenarios and grounding yourself in facts, not feelings. It means choosing a response that aligns with your values, not your impulses. In a world that rewards speed and noise, that kind of stillness is a superpower. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's trained, like a muscle, and every moment of tension is an opportunity to strengthen it. The next time you feel offended, ask yourself, what am I protecting? My ego or my integrity? The next time you feel anxious, ask yourself, am I forecasting failure or focusing on what I can do right now? The next time you want to lash out, ask, will this reaction help me lead or will it cost me my peace? These questions don't just calm the storm, they change your direction. This doesn't mean becoming passive, it means becoming precise. You don't ignore disrespect, you address it wisely. You don't deny pain, you grow through it consciously. You don't avoid conflict, you choose your battles with purpose. That's the heart of Stoicism. Not withdrawal, but alignment. Not coldness, but clarity. There's a reason the greatest warriors trained their minds before they trained their swords. They knew that true victory begins inside. The same applies now. Whether you're facing pressure at work, tension in your home, or chaos in the world, you will be tested. Not once, but constantly. And your peace, your clarity, your strength, it depends on how you respond to those tests. So train for them. Every morning remind yourself, today I don't control what will happen, but I control what I bring to it. My attention, my focus, my energy. And when things go wrong, as they often do, I don't lose myself in them. I return to what's mine, my mind. I guard it. I lead with it. I protect its clarity like a fortress. You don't need perfect conditions to find inner peace. You need discipline. You need stillness. You need awareness. And those things are not found out there. They are cultivated within. The person who can lead himself through his own thoughts, who can choose response over reaction, who can turn inward before lashing outward, that person is unshakable. So the next time the world tries to throw you off balance, remember this: power is not control over others. It is control over yourself. Not just your actions, but your interpretations, your beliefs, your thoughts. That's the battlefield. That's the practice. That's the real victory. And it begins the moment you choose to own your mind, not just visit it when things go wrong. When you do, everything else follows. Strength, stillness, self-respect. The world may remain chaotic, but you don't have to. You can stay centered. You can stay free. You can lead your life from within. Because if your mind is yours, then no one, not pressure, not pain, not even fear, can take that away from you. That is your edge. That is your freedom. And that's where the real power lies. 2. Accept what you can't control. Some things are not yours to fix, and the sooner you understand that, the freer you become. You don't lose power when you accept what's out of your hands. You regain it, because no energy is more wasted than the energy spent resisting reality. And no peace is more powerful than the kind that comes from letting go of what never belonged to you. Imagine this. You've worked hard, prepared well, and interviewed flawlessly. You're the best candidate on paper, and you feel it in your bones. But the offer goes to someone else, someone with an internal connection you never had access to. At that moment, frustration builds. Your mind races with questions, anger, and the temptation to assign blame. But deep down, there's only one truth. It wasn't yours to control. Not the system, not their bias, not the outcome, only your reaction. Stoic philosophy reminds us that life is not fair, and it was never meant to be. Not every opportunity is decided by merit. Not every plan will unfold as you intended. That's not a weakness. That's nature. That's life. And the more you expect fairness from an unfair world, the more disappointed you'll feel. But if you choose to release the grip, if you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you don't fall into weakness. You rise into wisdom. Letting go is not giving up. It redirects your focus to where your power actually matters. It's turning your gaze from the door that closed to the space you still own. Your mindset, your habits, your ability to learn, adapt, and grow. What was unfair can still be useful if you use it. There's a silent strength in the person who walks away from a closed door without bitterness. They're not avoiding the pain. They're refusing to be defined by it. They're not pretending it didn't hurt. They're choosing not to carry the weight of resentment. And in doing so, they move lighter, faster, and stronger. While others are stuck replaying events they can't change, they're already building what comes next. This is the Stoic mindset in motion. You don't waste mental space on complaints. You don't fight what's gone. You don't drown in what should have happened. You ground yourself in what is. And from there, you act. Because the one thing you always control is how you respond to disappointment, and the quality of that response defines the direction of your life. Acceptance doesn't mean settling. It means seeing things as they are and moving forward anyway. A Stoic doesn't pretend reality is kind. They just refuse to be broken by it. And this mindset doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. You learn to stop chasing ghosts and start building from what's real. When you train your mind to accept what's out of reach, you start using your energy where it counts. Instead of asking, "Why didn't I get that?" you start asking, "What can I do now to become undeniable?" Instead of obsessing over politics, favoritism, or chance, you double down on becoming so sharp, so grounded, so consistent, that the next time an opportunity shows up, you don't need luck. You've already made yourself ready. This mindset shift is subtle, but it changes everything. You stop expecting life to reward effort with fairness. You start rewarding yourself with progress, no matter what happens outside. The job may not come, the promotion may go to someone else, the relationship may end. But your growth, that's yours to command. That doesn't depend on them. It depends on you. Acceptance is not a moment, it's a discipline. It's the decision to release resistance every time you feel it rise. It's telling yourself, I may not control this, but I will control what comes next. That kind of mindset doesn't crumble under pressure. It adapts, it moves forward, it finds peace even in loss. And that peace becomes your foundation to rebuild, refocus, and rise stronger. Most people waste years fighting battles that were never theirs, trying to change minds that will never listen, trying to rewrite stories that have already ended. But when you accept what you can't control, you free yourself from that endless loop. You walk forward, clear-headed, no longer chasing, no longer begging life to be easier. Just move, with purpose, with awareness, and with full command of your inner world. You don't have to accept everything, but you must learn to accept what is outside your reach. That's not a weakness. That's Stoic clarity. That's emotional intelligence sharpened by truth. That's mental freedom. So when the next setback hits, pause, not to panic, but to think. Ask yourself, is this mine to fix or mine to face? And if the answer is to face it, do it with stillness. If the answer is to move on, do it with strength. The world may not always reward your efforts, but life will always respond to your mindset. Lead with that. Let go of the rest. Because freedom doesn't come from changing everything around you. It comes from mastering what's already within you. 3. Focus only on what you can control. Your mind has limited fuel. Every minute you spend worrying about what's out of your hands is a minute you steal from what's still within your reach. The more scattered your focus becomes, the weaker your action gets. That's why Stoic philosophy doesn't just recommend clarity, it demands it. Because in a world full of noise, strength comes from precision. Every day, millions of people obsess over headlines they can't change, markets they don't influence, or decisions made behind closed doors. They scroll, compare, complain, and wonder why they feel powerless. But that power wasn't taken from them. It was redirected, leaked, given away. Not to fate, not to the system, but to distraction. Now imagine a man who's just lost his job. Not because he's unskilled, but because the industry has changed. His company downsized. The economy shifted. AI took over roles once done by humans. He has every reason to be bitter. But instead of blaming the world, he opens his laptop and begins learning something new. Not because it's fair, but because it's the only part still under his control. That mindset doesn't just protect your energy, it restores your edge. When the world feels chaotic, your first move shouldn't be to panic. It should be focused. What is still yours to act upon? What can you build, repair, train, or decide today? The answer is always more than you think. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius return to this point again and again. Your power lies in your choices, not the weather, not the past, not public opinion, but your habits, your perception, your discipline. These are the roots of peace and the building blocks of personal freedom. When you focus only on what you can control, everything else falls into place. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because your attention stops fighting the tide and starts steering the ship. Control doesn't mean dominance over others. It means authorship over yourself. And once you accept that truth, your excuses begin to dissolve. There's something powerful about narrowing your vision, not out of ignorance, but out of intention. You stop asking, why is this happening? And start asking, what can I do right now that makes me stronger, clearer, better? That shift changes your entire relationship with adversity. You no longer fear change, you work with it. You no longer resist discomfort, you shape it. You no longer dread uncertainty, you train for it. Every complaint is an opportunity to refocus. Every distraction is a test of attention. Every setback is a fork in the road. Will you give energy to what's gone or to what remains? The Stoic doesn't react randomly. He responds deliberately. That's why he moves with quiet confidence, while others chase outcomes that aren't even in their control. You don't need to solve everything. You just need to move to the part of the world that responds to your effort. That might be your health, your thinking, your craft, or the way you show up in relationships. The rest, let it go. Not because it's unimportant, but because it's unmovable. You don't argue with the wind. You adjust your sail. And this isn't theory. It's practical. When you wake up tomorrow, the world won't suddenly change, but you can choose what time you rise, what you read, what thoughts do you feed, what conversations do you engage in, what food do you eat, how you speak to your family, how you show up to the challenges that will inevitably knock on your door. These are not small things. These are where your life is shaped, brick by brick. People often say they're overwhelmed, but they're not overwhelmed by the task. They're overwhelmed by the noise. When you remove everything outside your influence, what remains is manageable, trainable, actionable, and the clearer your mental boundaries become, the more resilient you grow. There's no peace in trying to control the uncontrollable, but there is deep power in mastering your response. That's why Stoic practices for stress management always begin within. You don't change the storm, you quiet the mind that fears it. You don't fix the chaos, you fix the lens through which you see it. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, don't look outward, look inward. Identify what is still yours to command. Is it your breath? Take one slowly. Is it your next step? Take it wisely. Is it your perspective? Reframe it clearly. These are not passive acts. These are powerful moves of mental strength and personal leadership. The men who rise in times of crisis aren't the ones who predict the future. They're the ones who master the present. One action, one decision. Take it one moment at a time. That is the essence of discipline. That is how you build momentum in the middle of uncertainty. That is what Stoicism teaches. Not to control life, but to lead it by controlling the only thing you ever truly own, yourself. So don't waste another second chasing things you can't catch. Pull your attention back. Own your choices. Build your habits. Train your mind. You may not fix the world, but you will transform your role in it. And when that happens, you'll stop feeling lost. Because clarity always returns when you stop looking everywhere and start focusing exactly where your power lives. 4. See life as a challenge. If you wait for life to get easier, you'll wait forever. But if you choose to see life as a challenge, you'll grow stronger with every step. That shift, mental, subtle, and deeply stoic, is what separates those who move forward from those who stay stuck. You can't control what shows up, but you can choose how you see it, and how you see it determines how you face it. Not everyone starts at the same line. Some people have comfort, support, and resources handed to them. Others begin with nothing but grit and hunger. A student from a rural town steps into the city with a dream. No connections, no money. He works late nights to afford rent, takes cold showers, and studies under streetlights. Most would call that unfair. But if you frame it as unfair, you weaken yourself. If you frame it as training, you rise above. Life becomes a mental gym. Every obstacle builds strength. Every rejection builds resilience. Every moment of doubt becomes a chance to double down. That's the power of perception. Stoicism teaches that the event is neutral. It's your interpretation that makes it unbearable or empowering. When you decide that life is not happening to you but for you to face, you stop resisting and start rising. Pain becomes feedback. Setbacks become milestones. Loss becomes preparation. You're no longer a victim of your circumstances. You're a challenger in the arena. And the truth is, challenges are not the exception. They are the rule. The question is not whether hard times will come. They will. The question is, what will you do when they do? Because how you show up when things fall apart says more about your strength than how you perform when everything's smooth. The Stoics knew this. They didn't seek a life of ease. They trained for adversity. They welcomed trials as the path to virtue. To them, discomfort wasn't a threat, it was a mirror. And only in that mirror can you see who you really are when the pressure's on. That's why reframing your struggles matters. If you see them as punishment, you retreat. If you see them as preparation, you grow. One mindset keeps you small, the other expands everything. And this isn't motivational noise, it's a method, one built on mental discipline, because once you define something as a challenge, your posture changes, your breath deepens, your focus narrows. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? That shift rewires your nervous system from panic to presence. You're no longer reacting, you're responding, and that's where power begins. This is especially vital in a world full of comparison and comfort. Social media shows the highlight reels, but real life plays behind the scenes, the sleepless nights, the rejections, the quiet battles no one sees. If you forget that everyone is fighting their own war, you'll believe you're the only one who's struggling. You're not. And that struggle doesn't mean something's wrong. It means you're in it. It means you're alive. It means life is calling you up, not pulling you down. So stop waiting for ease. Start preparing for difficulty. Train your mind the way a soldier trains for combat, not with fear, but with readiness. Look at your life right now. Where are the points of tension? Is it finances, family, health, purpose? Whatever it is, don't call it unfair. Call it a challenge. And challenges by nature are meant to be overcome. Start with what you have. Use what you know. Face what's in front of you. No need to solve everything overnight. Just meet the moment fully, without whining, without retreat. That alone sets you apart in a world drowning in complaints and avoidance. You won't get stronger by hoping the challenge goes away. You get stronger by going through it, deliberately, wisely, one day at a time. And here's what most people miss. The reward isn't just on the other side of the challenge. The reward is who you become while facing it. The discipline you build, the clarity you gain, the grit that hardens into quiet confidence. These things don't come from theory. They come from experience. And experience doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. You don't become unshakable by avoiding storms. You become unshakable by standing in the storm and realizing it can't break you. That's why every challenge you face is not just an obstacle. It's an invitation to step up, to level up, to rise with purpose, and leave behind the version of you that was waiting for life to be easy. So next time you're knocked down, don't ask why it happened. Ask what it's calling out of you. What new part of you needs to emerge? What strength needs to wake up? What lesson needs to be lived, not just learned? Because life will test you, it always does. But when you see it as a challenge, not a curse, you start responding like a warrior, not a victim. You stop asking for the load to be lighter, and you start asking for your shoulders to grow stronger. That's the Stoic way. That's how peace is built in chaos. That's how clarity survives confusion. And that's how the most ordinary man becomes extraordinary, by refusing to run and choosing to rise. 5. Train for the worst, negative visualization. Fear grows in the dark, but when you shine a light on it, when you face the worst in your mind before it ever arrives, you take its power away. That's the Stoic strategy called premeditatio malorum, or negative visualization. You can imagine the loss. You imagine failure. You imagine being broken down, so that when life actually hits, you're not surprised. You're ready. Most people try to avoid thinking about what could go wrong. They distract themselves. They deny the risk. They hope luck will protect them. But Stoicism flips that mindset. It doesn't train you to wish for safety. It trains you to prepare for the storm so thoroughly that fear no longer stops you. And that preparation doesn't begin on the battlefield. It begins in your mind. Picture a teacher walking into a classroom. She doesn't just rehearse her slides. She rehearses the moment when no one understands her point. She pictures blank stares, an awkward silence. A student asks something she can't answer. But instead of letting those images shake her, she uses them. She prepares backup examples. She prepares how she'll respond with poise. So when it happens, when real tension fills the room, she doesn't panic because she's already lived it in her mind. That's the power of negative visualization. It doesn't make you pessimistic. It makes you resilient, because the worst-case scenario loses its sting the moment you face it internally. Stoics believed this wasn't about inviting disaster, but about softening its impact before it arrives. And in today's world, where so much is out of our control, that kind of mental training is not just helpful, it's necessary. You can't stop the disruption. You can't avoid loss. You can't protect yourself from every failure, but you can stop being surprised by it. Surprise is what makes pain sharper. When you expect smooth roads, even a small bump rattles you. But when you expect difficulty, even disaster feels manageable. This is not about living in fear. It's about taking your fear and turning it into a mental workout. So how do you apply it? You take 5 minutes every day and ask, what could go wrong? What if the project fails? What if I lose this job? What if the market crashes? What if they don't choose me? Then walk yourself through it, not with panic, but with poise. What would I do if this actually happened? Where would I begin again? How would I adjust? The more clearly you rehearse it, the more power you take back from it. This doesn't paralyze you, it sharpens you. It prepares your nervous system for stress so you don't collapse when things get hard. It builds emotional control, not by pretending everything's fine, but by facing what may not be and responding anyway. That's a real strength. That's true self-discipline. Not positive thinking, but grounded readiness. Negative visualization also makes you more grateful. Because when you imagine loss deeply and vividly, you appreciate what you still have. The job you hate feels different when you picture life without income. The relationship you take for granted shifts when you imagine never speaking again. Even a normal, quiet day feels like a gift when you've already lived the version where everything goes wrong. And this mindset isn't about paranoia. It's about clarity. The Stoics understood that reality is unpredictable. You can't demand certainty, but you can train for uncertainty. Just like an athlete doesn't only train for the win, they train to recover from injury, to lose with dignity, to rise again. You must do the same. You train for rejection, for being underestimated, for losing what you thought was permanent. Not because you want it to happen, but because if it does, you won't fall apart. When you rehearse setbacks, you also rehearse your response. You build a mental playbook. So when life shifts, you don't scramble. You act, you adapt, you move forward with calm. That calm is your competitive edge. While others react emotionally, you respond with strategy. While others freeze, you take the next best step. While others ask, why me? You're already working on what's next. And here's something few people realize. Visualizing the worst often reveals how survivable it really is. You stop seeing it as the end. You start seeing it as a detour. You stop catastrophizing. You start strategizing. And that shift pulls you out of helplessness and puts you back into command of your life. You don't control fate, but you do control your preparedness. And that preparedness begins by refusing to live in denial. It begins by facing the hard truth. Bad things will happen. But the worst thing isn't that they happen. The worst thing is when they happen and you're not mentally ready, because then you fall apart. But if you've trained for the hit, you absorb it. You stay standing, you regroup, you rebuild. That's what Stoicism is offering you. Not an escape from pain, but a mindset that transforms pain into purpose. A method for facing life as it is, not as you wish it to be. Because no one gets through this life untouched. But those who train for difficulty suffer less, and those who suffer less bleed more. So don't wait for a crisis to find you. Meet it first, in your mind. Walk through the storm before it hits. Rehearse the fall so that when it comes, you rise faster than anyone expected. That's not fear, that's foresight. And that foresight, that's what makes you unbreakable. 6. Love your fate, amor fati. Not everything that happens to you will feel good. But everything that happens to you can grow you if you let it. That's the Stoic mindset of amor fati. Most people resist pain. They fight the past. They hold on to stories of what should have been. And the more they fight it, the more they suffer. But Stoicism offers another path. One where pain is not an enemy, but a teacher. Where setbacks are not curses, but raw materials. And where suffering is not the end of the road, but the beginning of transformation. Imagine someone who gave everything to a relationship. Years of trust, years of hope, and then one day it's gone. No warning, no closure, just silence and heartbreak. Most would spiral. Some would numb themselves with distraction. Others would let bitterness harden them. But a Stoic sees differently. They feel the grief, but they don't drown in it. They ask, what now? Amor fati is not romanticizing pain. It's understanding that the worst moments in life often carry the richest potential. Because nothing wakes you up like being broken. Nothing resets your values like loss. And nothing builds inner power like rebuilding yourself from the ground up. alone, focused, changed. What broke you can remake you, stronger, cleaner, clearer, if you choose to work with it instead of fighting it. This mindset matters because life doesn't ask for your permission. It gives, it takes, it moves. And if you keep demanding explanations, you'll waste years arguing with reality. But if you shift that energy toward embracing what is, you gain a different kind of control. Not over the event, but over its meaning. And meaning once owned becomes the soil where purpose is planted. You can't edit your fate, but you can shape your response to it. That response determines whether your pain becomes your prison or your platform, whether your trials harden your ego or humble your heart, and whether you live angry at the world or aligned with something deeper than emotion, something grounded, intentional, and clear. This doesn't mean you need to like the pain. It means you use it. A door closes, maybe the hallway is where you learn to walk alone. Does a career end? Maybe it's time to build something of your own. A person leaves? Maybe it's your signal to stop outsourcing your worth. The event doesn't define you, your interpretation does. And that interpretation is your power. When you live with amor fati, you don't need things to go your way. You just need them to go away. Gratitude becomes easier when you've seen the dark. Stillness becomes deeper when you've lived through chaos. Strength becomes quieter, more rooted, because you're no longer pretending life owes you comfort. You've stopped asking, why me, and started asking, how can I rise with this? That question alone reclaims your narrative. Amor fati doesn't remove the storm. It changes your posture. You don't crumble. You don't curse. You stand, wet, wounded, maybe even weeping, but you stand. And in time, you start to move. Not because it's easy, but because you're no longer waiting for things to go back to normal. You're building something new with what remains. The Stoics weren't invincible. They were human. They lost loved ones. They were betrayed. They were exiled, imprisoned, and misunderstood. But they chose to love fate anyway, not because it was fair, but because it was theirs. And what was theirs, they owned. Completely. That's why amor fati is one of the most powerful ideas in Stoicism. It invites you to stop resisting your life and start transforming it. To stop wishing it was different and start asking what it's here to teach. Every wound can become wisdom. Every loss can deepen your strength. Every ending can push you closer to the self you were avoiding becoming. So the next time something falls apart, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to numb it. Sit with it. Ask why it hurts. Ask what it reveals. Ask what version of you must die and what version is now ready to rise. Then love it, not for the pain itself, but for the power it unlocks. Because if you can love your fate, not just accept it, but love with it. And when that strength becomes who you are, you no longer need to control the world. Because you've mastered the one thing that shapes everything else, your relationship with reality. 7. Redefine success. Success is a moving target, and the more you chase society's definition of it, the more you lose sight of your own. You're told to aim higher, earn more, build bigger. But if that version of success disconnects you from who you are, then it's not a reward, it's a trap. Stoicism offers a different lens, one that strips away illusions and brings success back to something simpler, stronger, and far more personal. The world says you're successful when you stand out. Stoicism says you're successful when you stand firm. The world says status is everything. Stoicism says character is everything. This shift is not just philosophical, it's practical. Because the wrong definition of success creates anxiety, burnout, and a sense of never being enough. But the right definition builds discipline, peace of mind, and a grounded life rooted in values that last. Most people don't question the story they were given. Graduate, earn, impress, repeat. And if they do everything right, maybe, just maybe, they'll feel fulfilled. But Stoic wisdom flips that path upside down. It asks, what if success is not what you achieve, but who you become through the challenge? Not how much you have, but how well you live. Not how loud the applause, but how quiet the soul. This doesn't mean rejecting ambition. It means redefining ambition so that it aligns with inner peace, not outer pressure. You can build, grow, and achieve, but do it on your terms. Do it with self-discipline, emotional control, and moral clarity. Because without those, achievement becomes empty. Success without wisdom is noise. But success rooted in Stoic principles becomes a tool for service, not self-worship. So how do you redefine it? You start by asking harder questions. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I want that isn't shaped by comparison? What's worth sacrificing and what isn't? You start to see that some victories cost too much, that success bought with your mental health isn't success, it's debt. Fame without freedom is a cage, and that wealth, if it costs your peace, is just another form of poverty. You stop measuring life in trophies and start measuring it in integrity. How often do you act in alignment with your principles? How quickly do you recover when life knocks you down? How deeply do you live when comfort isn't guaranteed? That's Stoic success. Not just to win, but to remain whole while winning. Not just to endure loss, but to rise with dignity after it. There's power in removing the noise. When you stop living for likes, you start living for truth. When you stop chasing validation, you start building clarity. When you stop being driven by timelines you didn't choose, you start crafting a journey that reflects who you really are, not who you're trying to impress. And here's what changes. Pressure fades. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop outsourcing your worth. You don't crumble when others succeed faster. You don't panic when progress is slow. You stay the course, not because it's popular, but because it's yours. That kind of focus can't be faked. That kind of success can't be bought. A Stoic doesn't ask, am I ahead? He asks, am I better today than I was yesterday? He doesn't measure impact by noise. He measures it by depth, the quiet effort, the unseen growth, the internal victories no one else claps for. That's where real success lives, and it lasts longer, because it's built on something the world can't take away. So start measuring differently, not by the size of the win, but by the strength it took to earn it. Not by the outcome, but by the integrity you protected along the way. Success, in its highest form, is not applause, it's peace. Not public praise, but private power. Not reaching the top, but knowing that even if everything collapses, you didn't sell your soul to get there. And when that becomes your standard, you win either way. If you rise with character. If you fall with your values intact. You sleep better, you think clearer, you act with more weight, because you're no longer chasing someone else's vision, you're leading your own. That is what Stoicism teaches. You are not here to collect status. You are here to cultivate strength. You are not here to look successful. You are here to live with purpose. And when purpose leads, peace follows. Every action becomes intentional. Every setback becomes meaningful. Every moment becomes a step, not toward perfection, but toward alignment. So stop waiting for success to look a certain way. Redefine it, on your terms, based on who you want to be, not just what you want to have. Let your life be the proof that clarity outlasts chaos, that self-discipline builds more than status, and that the only success worth chasing is the kind that doesn't require you to lose yourself to earn it. 8. Take action every single day. Thinking about it changes nothing. Worrying about it changes nothing. Talking about it still changes nothing. Action is the only language reality understands, and in Stoicism there is no virtue in potential, only in practice. What you do daily defines who you become, not what you intend, not what you hope, what you act on. The truth is harsh, but it sets you free. Every day you delay is a day you let fear win, a day lost to hesitation. A day where the gap between who you are and who you could be grows just a little wider. But it doesn't have to, because power isn't hidden in grand gestures. It's hidden in small, consistent decisions. In the way you rise, speak, move, and commit to your path, regardless of how you feel. This isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. You're not asked to do it all today, but you are responsible for doing something. Because action is momentum, and momentum compounds. Even the smallest effort, done daily, beats bursts of energy followed by weeks of silence. The Stoic doesn't wait for motivation. He builds motion. Discipline becomes his compass, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. If you want peace of mind, act with purpose. If you want self-discipline, move even when it's uncomfortable. If you want strength, face resistance daily, not in theory, but in movement. Because avoidance might feel safe, but it's a trap. Every day you avoid the hard thing, it grows stronger. Every time you face it, you grow stronger. And the difference between the two paths becomes unrecognizable over time. Many people say they're stuck, but they're not stuck because they lack information. They're stuck because they lack action. They keep waiting for the right time, the perfect plan, the clear sign. But life rarely gives those. It rewards the ones who move anyway, who steps into uncertainty, who stumbles, who adjusts, and who tries again. That's how clarity is built, not before action, but during it. You don't need to know the whole path. You only need to take the next right step. That's enough, because consistent action rewires your brain. It trains your emotions. It transforms overthinking into discipline. Eventually, what was once difficult became normal. That is how transformation works. Not all at once, but choice by choice, day by day. And that's why the Stoics focused not on control over results, but on control over effort. Because the results are never fully yours, but effort always is. And if you show up with effort, again and again, you become a force life can't ignore. The world may not give you what you want immediately, but if you build the discipline to act daily, the world starts to respond, not to your wishes, but to your consistency. You already know what needs to be done. The real question is, will you do it today? Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient, but now. Because every excuse feels valid in the moment, but every action comes back later. Action sharpens your focus. Action strengthens your character. Action silences your doubts. Not because the doubts disappear, but because you outwork them. There's something sacred about those who take quiet, deliberate steps when no one is watching. The person who trains in the dark, who learns without recognition, who shows up for themselves even when applause is nowhere to be found. That person is dangerous, not because they're perfect, but because they're consistent. And in a world that rewards distraction, consistency is a superpower. And yes, there will be days when you slip, days when motivation is absent, days when failure knocks the air out of your chest. That's not the problem. The problem is believing those days define you. They don't. What defines you is what you do after. Do you stop, or do you keep going? Do you sit in shame, or stand back up with clarity? A Stoic never confuses a setback with a full stop. He resets, and he resumes. You can reflect all you want, but until you move, nothing changes. You can write goals all day, but until you act, they're fantasies. You can talk about your purpose, but until it shows up in your routine, it's only noise. Discipline is what converts intentions into impact. Action is what transforms philosophy into reality. So take the step, send the message, write the page, lift the weight, make the call. Whatever it is, do it today, and do it again tomorrow. Not for applause, not for results, but because that is who you are choosing to become. Because in the end, life doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you do. And if you act with clarity, with focus, with strength, every single day, there is no version of you that won't improve. Every version becomes stronger, every future becomes sharper, every moment becomes a tool in your hands, not a weight on your shoulders. You don't need a miracle, you need a movement. One action at a time. Take it one day at a time. That's how discipline is built. That's how freedom is earned. That's how you rise, stoically, quietly, unstoppably. Everything you've heard today leads back to one unshakable truth. Your mind is the foundation of your life. When you discipline it, you change your world, not by chance, but by choice. Stoic philosophy is not just something to reflect on, it is something to live for. Not in silence and thought alone, but in action, response, and repetition. Each of the principles we've explored, from mastering your perception, accepting what you can't control, focusing only on your sphere of influence, embracing challenges, visualizing hardship, loving your fate, redefining success, to taking action daily, are not abstract ideals. They are mental strength habits. They are personal growth strategies. They are tools of inner peace forged through practical self-discipline. You do not need perfection. You need commitment, a daily practice, a mindset that reminds you that no matter what happens outside, you still hold the pen. You are the author of your responses, your routines, and your rise. So train your mind like a warrior prepares for battle. Stay calm under pressure. Stay focused in the face of distraction. Practice silence in chaos. Apply Stoic principles to modern challenges, not someday, but now. Start with one thing, one thought, one shift in how you see the moment. Repeat it tomorrow and the next day. Build a daily Stoic routine that strengthens your mindset and unlocks mental clarity. Because when your mind becomes strong, your life follows. If something in this journey spoke to you, share it. In the comments below, tell us your story. Tell us what challenge you're facing and how you're responding. Your voice might be the one that inspires someone else to begin. This isn't the end. This is the start of your transformation. One decision, one action, one day at a time. Let it begin now.